What happened to Seneca Village, one of the city's first free Black communities? The end of the story is, it's no longer here. What had been Seneca Village is now part of Central Park West between 82nd and 89th Street. The start of the story is about 200 years after it all began. It was about 200 years after the first group of African people were captured, trafficked, and sold as slaves in what is now New York City, that slavery was finally abolished in New York State, 1827. Newly freed Black folks then had to look for a job in a market that was already oversaturated due to increasing immigration from Europe. So these other laborers, already desperate to find a decent job, despised the additional competition, and hostility towards Black Americans increased. Upper Manhattan at the time was still considered relatively out of the way. It was mostly farmland. So up here, you could get a little bit of fresh air and a little bit of safety from the oppressive and overcrowded downtown. Despite the legal and societal barriers, a 25-year-old Black man named Andrew Williams, a bootblack, a shoe shiner, succeeded in buying a few plots of land up here for $125. A Black store clerk named Epiphany Davis followed, as did the African Methodist Episcopal Zion Church, or AME Zion, which was also the city's first free Black church. Other families followed, soon forming Seneca Village, comprised of approximately 225 people, about 2/3 Black, the rest largely Irish immigrants. There were 3 churches, multiple burial grounds, plus colored school number 3, one of the only schools at the time that was open to Black children. But as Seneca Village grew more successful, Lower Manhattan overgrew at an increasingly unsustainable rate. The city decided they needed to build a giant public park, one for the health and recreation of the people, and 2, to maximize the value of increasingly expensive real estate as the city continued to move north. After some debate over the exact location, it was decided to build in the center of the island, and the city cleared away the homes already here using a law called eminent domain, which allows the government to seize privately owned property for the purpose of public use. Eminent domain often destroys entire communities. It separates families, it divides neighbors. There's a loss of organizations, loss of culture, loss of generational wealth. And in the case of Seneca Village, there was also disenfranchisement, loss of their right to vote. In order for a Black man to qualify to vote back then, he needed to own a certain value of property and reside here for a certain period of time. By taking away the land of Seneca Village, that eliminated approximately 10% of the Black vote. Now, while the use of eminent domain does require that landowners be compensated for their land, it does not require that they be compensated fairly. Records indicate that Andrew Williams, who paid $125 in 1825 for his land, in 1857 was paid $2,335, though his petition to the government values the land at closer to $4,000. Now, while people on pre-park land protested, there was no larger outcry. Folks in Lower Manhattan were very excited for a public park, and the newspapers were thrilled at the idea, calling people living on pre-park land nothing but squatters and thieves anyway. In total, around 1,600 people were evicted from pre-park land, including the Piggery District, comprised largely of Irish immigrants who kept pigs, the Sisters of Charity of New York, a Catholic congregation in service of the poor, and of course, Seneca Village. Aside from those squatters and thieves articles, Seneca Village was largely lost to history until 1992. In a book called The Park and the People, authors Roy Rosenzweig and Elizabeth Blackmar compared those slanderous articles with unbiased census records, tax forms, and church directories. The stories just didn't add up. More than half of Black households in Seneca Village owned their own land, so they couldn't all be squatters like the paper said. They were called unemployed thieves, but census forms show waiters, domestics, coopers, sailors, grocers. These rediscoveries inspired more historians to investigate, leading to an archaeological dig of the site in 2011, where they uncovered lost possessions like beads, a teapot, a small leather-soled shoe. In 2019, the Central Park Conservancy installed this outdoor art exhibit, marking important buildings like the AME Zion Church, the All Angels Church, and the African Union Church. Seneca Village was not the only predominantly Black neighborhood in the city that was torn down using eminent domain. Historically, eminent domain disproportionately affects Black and low-income Americans. It happened across the city, across the state, and across the country. I was not taught this in school, and I imagine that I am not the only one. If you would like to learn more about Seneca Village, Central Park's website has a lot of information, including an interview with Andrew Williams' great-great-great-great-granddaughter, Ariel Williams, where she shares her family's inspiring history post-Seneca Village. If you're in New York, the Metropolitan Museum of Art has a small exhibit called Before Yesterday, We Could Fly, where some of these artifacts are on display. There's also a handful of books, although I was especially moved by Marilyn Nelson's book of poetry, My Seneca Village. It is so helpful in understanding where we are today if we know how it is that we got here. I am so grateful to the people who have helped educate me, and I'm really thankful if ever we can learn together, because after all, it takes a village.